So, Sancerre is, I would say, the main vineyard area of the central vineyards locations in the province of the Loire Valley. The Loire is actually quite a huge region, covering lots of space, with lots of different climate types and lots of different intrinsic little parcels and little corners. Everything changes every 50 kilometers basically. Most interesting thing about Sancerre, I would say, in my opinion, is how far removed it is from the rest of the Loire. If you're not familiar with Sancerre, we're talking south of Paris, we're talking west of Dijon, so we're kind of in a central axis of the entire country. It's actually closer to Burgundy than it is to Anjou or Touraine, and of course, it's way closer to the Côte d'Or than it is to Muscadet and other smaller regions like that. And that also tells a lot about what kind of climate we've got here generally, and also what kind of soil types. What would be considered a cool region, although with global warming, Sancerre is becoming quite a heat wave location now. It's leading to a lot riper wines in the traditional style. In Sancerre, you're closer to Chablis, you're closer to Champagne, that kind of really rich, extremely old sedimentary rock, soil, bedrocks and soil types, etc. So yeah, limestone's a big deal when it comes to Sancerre. Limestone is basically a created sediment from years and millennia of sedimentation of different sediments of rock and earth from all over. What's most special about the Loire Valley is that the majority of that comes from, when I say millennia, it really is, it's fucking old basically. Limestone soils on your palate is normally the place where you feel it the most. Now, if you're not a scientist, and I'm definitely not a scientist, I had to do this equation in my head many times. Low pH actually means high acid. So it's inverse. So if you have a high acid wine, normally it's grown on the low pH soil. Yeah, it's an interesting location for sure. We're definitely not in traditional land for these three bottles and for this producer in general. This is the complete opposite. Sébastien Riffault is one of the producers in Sancerre who I think many call renegade or rebellious or what have you, but in actual fact, he's really going back to the oldest traditions of that area. I think he's kind of quoted as saying it's one of the, he's carrying on the tradition of his father and his grandfather rather than carrying on the current trend of what a Sancerre Sauvignon Blanc should taste like. Well, we're in the privileged position to have three Riffault wines in front of us, which is not every day for most people. The three wines we're presenting today will be the Sauletas, the Aquitaine, and the AUKSINIS. All single plot bottlings or single LUD bottlings, which is normally how Riffault works with the majority of his portfolio. But these three wines have three presentations of character, I would say. They don't differ too much in winemaking and production, but they do differ. Where they do differ is in the ground, and as strange as that sounds to most people, soil type, despite the fact that most scientists will tell you you're insane or full of shit or that these things don't exist, a palate doesn't lie and your nose doesn't lie most days. So there are distinct differences with single vineyard wines. So the Sauleta comes from the Kimmeridgian Marl. Now the Kimmeridgian Marl is some of the oldest limestone in the world. It comes from Ice Age kind of bedrock times. So it is the remnants of what was an ocean bed. So some people sometimes say they can taste rock and oysters in a champagne. Very similar soil types here in Sancerre, and I think this really bracing acidity sometimes, it can, this is where your brain goes straight away. So the AUKSINIS and the Aquitaine are both heavily limestone. The Aquitaine is the only different one, I would say. This is the Portlandian. I don't know too much about where the age of the Portlandian limestone comes from, but yeah, the Kimmeridgian really is your kind of benchmark limestone level. It's the marl that everyone really wants. And with all of these, there's an element of clay within the soil, and the clay acts as your binding agent. Most people would know clay as being quite dense, malleable, and really something that takes in water quite easily, which is helpful because obviously limestone is the complete opposite. It's brittle, it's dry, and it needs a binding agent. So clay is normally perfect for that, and it is the gold standard. When you have limestone, you'd love a bit of clay. Sometimes you'd also like a bit of sand, but as long as you've got a binding agent, then you're good. 2017 AUKSINIS bottling is what's in the glass at the moment. I mean, straight away, I can leave this glass over there and I automatically can see a few things that you probably wouldn't normally see in a Sancerre. First of all, you have a beautiful amber color. It has a really inviting little bit of haze through it. It's offering a lot already, which basically tells you a lot about how the winemaking goes on in the Riffault house, basically. All of Riffault's bottlings follow a bit of a structure, but the AUKSINIS, because we have older vines here, we also have a little bit more Botrytis than normal. There's normally 50% on AUKSINIS bottles, so 50% of the harvest will be affected or infected one way or another with Botrytis, which is super cool, and you can really tell here. So you've probably read about noble rot somewhere, heard about noble rot from someone, or heard a wine nerd talk about noble rot before. It's actually just a cool name or a little side name, street name for a fungus. Botrytis cinerea is the technical name. If you want to get scientific, you want to get nerdy. Botrytis is one of these things that needs control. And if you don't control it, it turns into a rot pretty quick. Noble rot Botrytis works in a way where it actually punctures small holes on the grape skin. And then the grape skin, of course, starts to lose its water quite quickly. But that's all it loses. It just loses water content. So all of the flavor concentration and all of the sugar and all of the sugars in the grape concentrate. So you get flavor concentration, sugar concentration, and believe it or not, you also get acidic concentration. For it to be beneficial to wine, it also needs to stop, because if it continues to grow, then you can basically say bye-bye to your entire crop or your entire harvest. Yep, misty mornings are important. It needs that coolness, it needs that little bit of moisture, but then it needs to burn off. So you need a sunny, mild to warm afternoon, or else you've got serious problems. You'll probably lose your, a good 20-30% of your crop. It is used more regularly for sweet wines and for sweet wine production because it does concentrate sugars so much. But the beautiful thing about Botrytis, like I said, is that it doesn't kill the acidity. So you can have a really sweet, luscious wine, but still have an element of freshness there. It's most famously, I guess, Botrytis is used with Riesling. Riesling and Botrytis love each other. Plus, Riesling is normally grown in cooler areas, much like Sancerre. So, there is a good chance of those conditions happening. Riffault is a very lucky man. He normally sees these kind of conditions on a yearly basis. And if he's not seeing them in a regular season, he'll basically leave on vine until he'll get them. So it's a courageous move. I could say something quite raw about what kind of move I think it is, but look, it's a pretty courageous move to leave your grapes on the vine that long, because there's a huge chance that things can go wrong. Most of Sancerre would be picking or harvesting early, and I mean, to say that Riffault harvests late would be the understatement of the year. And then you've got winemaking and production, which is the complete opposite to what most people are doing in the Loire Valley in general, especially in Sancerre. Fermentations for the AUKSINIS normally goes on a little bit longer, which is very, very typical for botrytized wines. They normally have a higher sugar content. So because the sugars have been concentrated, so to ferment those wines to dryness takes a little bit of time. Of course, these are all spontaneously fermented. There's no inoculated yeasts here. So they do need a lot more time than, one of these commercial yeast style bottlings. The majority of Riffault's bottlings all go through malolactic conversion, which automatically lowers the what you would call bracing acidity. Again, if you want to get nerdy, it lowers the malic acidity of the wine in general. So it does round it out a little bit on your palate. And it also gives it a softer texture in your mouth, a softer mouthfeel. Also, another overall winemaking technique from Riffault is going through a long period on fine lees. So for the French out there, the Solis aging. Now, for those of you who aren't too familiar with lees aging and Solis aging, in a nutshell, it is a fine sediment of yeast particle, and it's more than just yeast particle, but yeah, let's not go too deep into it. But yeah, it's a small sediment of yeast particles which basically sediment themselves on the bottom of the maturation vessel, in this case barrels. Riffault's normally maturing all of his bottlings in old oak barrels. He does most of the fermentations in those too, but this can also be switched up into larger oak vats. These are direct pressed, so there's actually, believe it or not, with that color, there is no skin contact for these wines, they're direct pressed. He does do a maceration bottling as well, but this is a direct press wine. But having such a long fermentation in a wooden vessel means you're getting lots of oxidation happening in the fermentation already, which is key to that color. To be completely honest with you, the first time I tried an AUKSINIS, I was absolutely convinced that it was a skin macerated or skin fermented wine, something along those lines. I was eating humble pie that day and I almost did it again. I was like, no, I can't believe it. Yeah, I mean, straight away you're getting lovely oxidized apple, lovely pear, a little bit of peach. Also that yeastiness coming through from the lees aging as well, just a touch. It's not really overt, it's not in your face, it's nothing like that. To be honest, despite how potent the aromas are, it's also not a punch you in the face kind of aroma. It's very subtle, it's very restrained. Have to be honest, it's pushing all my buttons at the moment. And really, you can also smell that deep oxidation. So not only have you got a fermentation which has been oxidized, you're getting 2 years in old oak barrels as a maturation period. And then you're so known for this bottling, not so much, but for some of the other bottlings, it also has a little bit of bottle aging before release. This one gets bottled after 24 months directly. And yeah, it is wonderful. Wonderful, I'm gonna try some. Wow. When you talk about limestone soils and expecting high acidity, yeah, it 100% delivers, but it does have a lovely soft, silky mouthfeel. It's not razor edged, it's not aggressive. It is really, really, really amazing. It does have a kind of touch of that mandarin skin, a little bit of like freshly grated orange rind on the palate as well. Really lovely. And I mean, I haven't put that one anywhere near my face for a good 30 seconds and it's literally like I just swallowed. It has such a depth and length to it that it keeps offering things. There is something about the wine that entices you to want to know more about it. It's not a smasher by any means. It's not a, you know, you will want to probably taste, if you're anything like me, you'll probably want to taste it the day after, just to see what kind of change, and it will change. You can feel that already. You can feel you can feel the potential that it has in 24 hours, but you can also feel the potential it has over another 2 years in bottle, 5 years in bottle. I mean, the acidity is so high, I'd feel that it would potentially keep for 10 plus. So the difference between these three bottlings is that they are bottlings from single parcels. So they all come from different plots of land with different characteristics, both within the soils and within the age of the vines as well. So the Sauletin comes from 50-year-old, or on average 50-year-old vines. The AUKSINIS is also a 50-year-old, but the AUKSINIS is a little younger, starting at about 30, 35. Sauletin is fermented in barrels. Actually, it's not fermented in vat, it's all fermented in small used oak barrels. It's aged on the lees, of course, malolactic's done, and then it has 24 months of maturation, so 2 years in barrel. Also after it is bottled, and then aged for 6 months in bottle before release. So it has that extra 6 months bottle aging. The AUKSINIS and the AUKSINIS are very, very similar. They're direct pressed, fermented, sometimes in vats. Normally what's happening with these things is there's some vat fermentation and some barrel fermentation, and then a cuvee blend is done at the end between, all within the same parcel. These are all of Riffault's bottlings bar one, none which are on this table, but most of Riffault's bottlings are bottled without any additive at all, no sulfur, there is no filtration done. They are bottled, as per Riffault's words, they are bottled by gravity. So it's literally one vessel to another. And I mean, you have a very romantic picture about how this all happens, but yeah, it's as simple as that. These are no sulfur bottlings. These are unfiltered, obviously unfined, and you can see it right there. It's proofs in the pudding, really. You might be wondering what the 3 names of these particular bottlings are. They are all taken from Lithuanian, or the Lithuanian language. Riffault's wife is Lithuanian, and they all reflect what's happening within these particular plots and within these particular bottles. So Letas is translated to roughly, vaguely, sunny. AUKSINIS is translated to made of stone, which you can relate to in terms of, I guess, limestones. And the AUKSINIS is golden, which I think is pretty bang on. If you've never tried a Riffault before, I think it's worth it just for the challenge. I think you will be challenged by these wines in some way, shape or form. You will smell things and taste things you're probably not used to tasting or smelling when it comes to wine. Even in the natural wine world, it is very, very singular. For me, there's not many bottlings, there's not many houses which can produce such consistently challenging but amazing wines in one hit. I think there's lots of value in someone who takes so much time to simply put wine in a bottle every year. Okay, that's it. We're done? Are we sure? No more? Okay, so cheers. Bye. These are mine. Bye.